Development and Community Development Committee. I think this is probably the last time that we'll be meeting as jointly the Economic and Community Development. The mayor put out a notice yesterday, which I think is very appropriate, that we're going to take economic development and separate it and have a separate community development committee that'll be chaired by Ms. Herbert. And he's created another committee called, help me out here, what is it? It's something in public health.
Health, Social, and Environmental Affairs.
Health, Social, and Environmental Affairs that will be chaired by Dr. Bussell with Mr. Duvall and Mr. McDowell, and that will be responsible for homeless programs and public health programs in the city. So,
General quality of life.
yeah, we've, I think, very appropriately elevated homelessness and the services that were provided into a place where it's going to be have a committee that really works with it on its governance. And I think that's again a very appropriate thing to do in light of the investment that the city's made this year at addressing the chronic homelessness on the street issues more than anything else. Any comments before we get started, Ms. Harbert? Mr. Blackson, I'll let you go first. How about that?
Good afternoon. Thank you all very much for having us today. On behalf of Susan and Henry and myself in the chamber, we appreciate very much y'all's support of our military program that we've been having at the chamber for a long time, and the city's been a huge partner for that. So I want to just give you a quick update of where we are and how things are going as it relates to our military affairs. And Councilmember Taylor, I know you were out there recently for a night infiltration course. Hope you learned a little bit.
Took young John Taylor with me where he could learn if he didn't behave.
Good.
Better grades where he might end up.
It's a great place for show and tell and to learn what not to do. But things are great out at. In fact, I don't know of a better time that we've had, at least in my time at the chamber in 8 years of our relationship with Fort Jackson, and really the military as a whole. I mean, if you look at it, just in your packets there, you've got some fact sheets, but also we've included the military-based task force, which is under the Department of Veterans Affairs, did a fiscal impact study of the military throughout the state, and we're fortunate here that we have over $6 billion impact from our military just in the Midlands of South Carolina. And that includes not only Jackson, which has about a $4.2 billion impact, but our National Guard, our VA hospital. So all told, $6.6 billion impact, which is a significant amount of revenue that flows through the city and the county and the region, for that matter. But most importantly, we got a lot of people. We're fortunate over the last couple of years, we've seen a spike in new hires out at Fort Jackson. Pre-pandemic, they were somewhere around 7,000 employees. Now they're 8,200 employees with the success of their soldier prep program that they started back in July of this year, which is, for layman's terms, is like a junior college for soldiers that are thinking about coming, who may need some help to get to where they need. So the Army has not met their numbers for a number of years as it relates to bringing in new soldiers. So their recruitment numbers have been down, and so they had to get creative. And they were able to start a program where folks can come on post and up to 90 days and get the training they need to qualify to meet the Army standards. Significant program. We're the only place in the country that's doing that. We're the only branch of the military that's actually doing it. And so DOD has sent a bunch of bigwigs down from the Pentagon to look at this program to see the success. They don't want to release all the numbers yet, but if you ask the general, they're very pleased with the outcomes, and so that's going to help further our cause and make Columbia a better place and more soldiers coming through here, which is a great opportunity for us. But with that comes new numbers, and hopefully they're going to bring in another 85 people to this market to help that soldier prep program. So all told, 8,200 current employees right now. That's a combination of both active duty as well as civilian folks that live off post. And so we're still about 70% of the folks that live or work on Fort Jackson live off post, which is, again, our neighbors, our friends, folks we go to church with. And so the economic impact is significant. And through our work, we do hire a consultant up in DC, and we were able to, this year, get about $55 million worth of construction dollars that flows back to Fort Jackson. We've seen in the last 20 years almost $900 million worth of direct congressional spend, Fort Jackson, and there's a lot of other dollars that flow through other pots of money, but that's just through the MILCON. The military construction is about $898 million over the last 15, 20 years. So we've been very pleased. They added a new reception barracks, but as you know, costs over the last few years have gone up, and so they've had some cost overruns, but we've been able to secure some dollars through Senator Graham, Congressman Clyburn to help offset those deficits. But all in all, we had a really good year at Jackson last year with $55 million coming for those new training barracks. But we're thrilled with General Jason Kelly. He's been a great addition to Fort Jackson since August 31st when he took over. But we've been pleased with him. He loves it here and is so excited. If y'all have met him and had a chance to, he's got more energy than I've ever seen in somebody. But through his leadership and General Michaelis, one of the things I was up in D.C. back in October, and one of the things that General Michaelis really pressed upon us before he departed was looking at Jackson and figuring out ways we can use that for different missions. And it does not have to be an Army mission. It needs to be another branch of defense work. It could be another branch of government, quite frankly. But there's a lot of land that's in the city of Columbia that is out there. We have 50,000 acres. But all around, I call it the downtown, the old Fort Jackson proper, where there's some barracks but offices, there's a lot of space for future economic development activity. And the key is to find the right mission, to find the right partner that needs to be behind protected lines. I mean, you basically have to go through a checkpoint to get in, so it's a secure facility. But I think we've got our congressional folks looking out for us. We've got our consultants looking out as well to try to find a partner. It could be Justice Department, it could be Homeland Security. There are a lot of folks that are looking to grow, and there's plenty of space out there that could be used for future uses. And so one of the big missions that we've been talking with Jackson about, what can we see? We're also looking for additional missions as it relates to the Army. Now, our livelihood has been about training. And I think that's what we need to stick with. I don't think anybody wants a bunch of helicopters and bombs blowing up things, but I do think that there's a right civilian need and a back office support mechanism that we can put out there that could benefit all of us and bring in more employees, which is what we want. So we're trying to use your dollars that y'all give to our group as wisely as possible, but I think our numbers are pretty good. The growth that we've seen out there is significant, and I think with this Army prep program, and if we can continue to grow and look at other missions, I think we'll be in good shape. I don't want to belabor it because y'all have got other business to do, but feel free to, if you see anything that you have questions about, Susan, myself, will be happy to answer any questions, but we're delighted with our partnership with Fort Jackson and our military at McEntire. I think that McEntire has done extremely well this year. I thought their movement to have the F-16s flying out of CAE has been great for the public to see what they do. Now, that'll come to an end first part of the next year, but they'll go back to McEntire once the pavement is done, the repaving work at McEntire. But we're looking to partner with them and try to keep as many of their active duty folks here in the Midlands. So current job fairs and opportunities for, right now there are about 32 folks that retire every month out of Fort Jackson. And our hope is that we can keep some of them here. We did pass this year at the General Assembly a bill that allows 100% of the retiree pay from our military friends to be tax exempt from state taxes, which is a huge incentive because there are 34 other states that have already passed that. So we were the 35th. So it was more of a competitive issue. But I think we're going to have a good opportunity to have a future workforce retire here in Columbia, which is good for all of us. So with that, thank you all for your support. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Carl, thank you for y'all's work that you do with our fantastic military and all the workforce initiatives you have in place. You know, we had all great intentions of having a city council delegation committee that interacted with Fort Jackson and our military presence here to expand the quality of life. And exactly as you pointed out, how do we keep those wonderful residents that come through the fort, how do we get them to retire here, enjoy a quality of life here, grow a family here? What suggestions, what can we do? How can we team up to be more effective in the role that the city plays in promoting the quality of life, the attractions, the reason to stick around and be a part of Columbia and its future as a city?
Well, two things. It starts when they first come to Columbia, and Susan, I'll give props to Susan. They started an orientation program for all new officers that come through, and they begin in the summer. So in August of every year, we host all the new officers and their spouses, and we have a half-day program for them to talk about all the things in Columbia in the Midlands, and there are probably 75 people that are there. But the point is orient them on not just Jackson, but the region as a whole. We're going to do the same type of program this spring. I've got a meeting with the deputy commanding officer on Friday. What we want to do is those that are thinking about retiring or are in the pipeline to retire, catch them early, which is 3 or 4 months before their actual departure, and let them meet with businesses here in the Midlands to say, hey, here's mainly in the HR. Some of the problem that we've seen is people that have worked in the Army for 25, 30 years, they don't know anything else but the Army. And they don't really know how to transition their skills to the private sector. And so we're going to have workshops set up with businesses and HR folks to go and meet with them to say, hey, these are your skill sets. These are what we can help with. Not in Army terms, but in the private sector terms, which is the biggest disconnect, quite frankly. But for us to sit with them and bring our employers out and say, your skill sets match up here, here, and here. And this is what are opportunities within our industry. But we want multiple industries represented. So I'd love to partner with y'all to put this on. But that came as a request of the DCO that we look at an opportunity. And so we're going to flush it out.
Is that something OBO or a department of the city could look into possibly?
We'll connect with the program.
And do we have a liaison that works with you in general, with your various boards and your monthly meetings? Is the city represented?
Well, Ryan is actively engaged with us. His part of economic development, we keep him apprised of everything that we're doing.
Oh, good. Well, if there's any more of a formal role that the city of Columbia can do to tell that story of the city of Columbia and the great things about it.
Well, we would love to have you, if you've not been out on post lately, and if you've not been to a graduation, or if you've not been to a night infiltration, you hear about things and you know what Fort Jackson's there, but seeing is believing, and recognizing, just having that experience is pretty awesome. So we'd love to coordinate something with you if you have an interest in going out.
Fantastic. Thank you.
And I would just add, as you're looking at the different industries, to include the city of Columbia as a place, I would love to have some retired military folks at the city. I think that would be good. I think that would be good.
Well, there are so many folks that are leaving that actually now we have a competitive footing where they come to Columbia, they love what they offer, and you talk to General Johnson, you talk to General Biggs, and you talk to Michaelis and Kelly, and the consistency is we offer something different than most posts. And throughout their travels, it's pretty consistent where we have done a really good job of welcoming them and making them feel like this is a place where they can retire, which is important. And because the more retired officers that we have, that means we're doing something right, and they want to be here, they want to be included. So hopefully we'll keep on doing this work.
Thank you, Carl. I just would mention just a couple of things, going back to General Cloutier. The Army is really bringing a different kind of general here today than they did when I was a kid. They used to come here to retire,
That's
and
exactly
now the Army's put a whole new level of importance on recruiting. I remember Roger used to say was, you know, this is the most important thing we do in the Army. If we don't get it right here, we won't. And General Kelly has been just an absolute gem for us. I was tickled to see him be I think he was the Grand Marshal in the Christmas parade.
He
wasn't
was.
And then I would just add, I don't know if anybody saw it, but Boyer Construction Company during Thanksgiving did a series of all the veterans that they have working in their company. And I think that will be a nice thing to feature going forward.
And their latest, General Maz, is a great addition. I can't pronounce his last name. I just call him Maz. But Brian and his team have recruited a bunch of veterans that have that served in high levels.
We appreciate everything you and Susan are doing at the Chamber of Commerce, and thank you. Let's keep. I think that membership roll is growing, isn't it?
It is growing.
I think, didn't I hear something about how many days in a row? I mean, how many years in a row, months in a row it's gone up?
We're about 25, 26 months in a row we're on.
That's pretty strong.
Yeah. So
Congratulations.
thanks for the city.
We're all growing, we're all growing.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to add on a couple of things that Carl was saying. Well, you had asked about this, and I just wanted to elaborate on what Carl was saying. On a monthly basis, I go out to the fort, and I welcome in all of our new senior officers, and they might be drill sergeants, first lieutenants, the ones that are actually doing the training and the work. And in the last 8 years, we have welcomed personally over 10,000 new officers to here. And the first thing I do is I tell them welcome on behalf of the city and Carl. And then I say, our goal is for you to serve here, serve your country, come back and retire here. So that message we share loud and clear. We also work with job fairs without at Fort Jackson, with the city, the county, all of our local employers, and law enforcement is a big one that they're working on right now. And then we do work with contracts so that if people here in the city, small businesses, have an idea and want to pitch it out at Fort Jackson, we help them make those connections so that they can go be successful. And I am going to brag just a minute. We recently had the Midlands Minority Business Accelerator Program. We had our first class graduate. Intereston has such a small world. We work on contracts up in Washington. They're doing work bringing the dollars to Fort Jackson. One of our local small businesses, PatCon Masonry, actually won a contract at Fort Jackson, and they're doing some of the work on the barracks. So it goes full circle and comes back and benefits us in numerous ways. And so that's just a great small business thing. And then we do a lot of work to try and make sure that we help the general and the city and everybody meet the common goals of growing together. So just wanted to add that little bit. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Ryan?
I just wanted to thank Ryan. He's going to be talking about a Greenville Economic Development Stimulus Program that they have that caught our eyes. And I asked him to do a little bit of research and kind of share that with us so that we can look at whether or not this is something that we may want to do. I don't know if I shared with you all the article. The article that I read specifically dealt with grocery stores. But I think we're going to learn today from Ryan that they use it in various ways. Is that a good introduction, Ryan? Oh, and what I'll add is this would be another effort with the mobile food market and things that we're trying to do to address food scarcity.
Good afternoon, everyone. So what I've put in front of you today is just kind of general overview of Greenville's business license and permit fee rebate program. This is something that they've introduced very recently. I think it came out in October of 2021 based on the information that I've seen. And so what they are doing is in an effort to support some of their existing businesses, which are in a desired business classification, i.e. a retailer, an artist, grocery stores are target as a part of this as well. And then, you know, identifying certain geographies that are a priority for them, you know, so kind of looking at a case where you might see in Columbia where we've had artists, you know, in the downtown Vista area that might get priced out of that. Greenville put together this rebate program where, you know, essentially an artist in the West End or their downtown area would apply for this type of incentive. And for a period of 5 years, it would allow them to get a rebate for 100% of their business license and their permit fee cost as well. The existing businesses are also allowed to take advantage of this. They also have to apply for the rebate program, but they can get a benefit of up to 50%. And so basically what they've done is their council sat down, they've identified where their target areas are. You can look in the packet that I've put together for you here. You can see where their grocery store incentive area is. They've got online interactive maps, you know, so you can enter in your address and see if you're in a qualifying area. Same for retail and same for artists. And so that's the program that they've got. It's in place. It's for artists, retail, and grocery stores, and these all have to be in specific designated areas. Other businesses that they've included in the program allow for manufacturing, corporate headquarters, childcare was included as well, and commercial annexation, surprisingly. So I think it's something where they wanted to put together a particular benefit, you know, for businesses that they were bringing inside of the city limits that, you know, may have to bear the cost of some additional property taxes as well. Also included at the back of the packet, and I think Ms. Knox passed out copies of it, is their ordinance. It's a pretty decent little read at about 6 or 7 pages, but it's pretty thorough. I think they've done a really good job of kind of outlining specifically what type of businesses they're looking at and what their priority target areas are.
Now, Ryan, I do have a question where it says incentives for job creation and capital investment. Are there some dollar amounts that they have to spend? Is that what this is about?
So that is for a different type of investment.
Okay.
So the businesses that we talked about and the target areas that they've outlined, you know, that right is allowed up front. They've put this additional program in place, you know, essentially understanding that you might not be a business of a particular type that's coming in our target area, but we understand that if you're creating 10 jobs at or above the county median wage and you're investing a certain amount of money in the city, we also want to provide you some level of benefit as well. And so if you look through those additional tables, you'll see that the benefit period is only for 3 years and not for 5, as it is in the outright program. And additionally, you have to hit certain criteria to get additional permit fees rebated. So business that's only creating 10 new jobs and investing $500,000 would only get 25% of their permit fees rebated, whereas a business with a higher qualifying amount would get a bigger rebate and a longer rebate term. So they're covering a lot of bases here is kind of what they've outlined.
Thank you. I will say, Mr. Taylor, the reason that I hadn't read the statute, so I didn't know it was as expansive as it is. But I would like the committee to consider kind of drilling in on the opportunity to, at the very least, use this for grocery stores. But I can see other areas that we may want to consider looking at.
Question. Ryan, Jeff, can you, so I'm looking at new jobs, 50 plus, check the box for a grocery store, capital investment $1 million, business license rebate 100. Can you put into perspective what that number on the business license rebate would be if you calculated that out? Is it enough to really move the needle to put a potential grocery developer or a grocery operator in the position to truly go forward with a project that otherwise they wouldn't in the past bite off?
It's tough to say. I don't have that information ready right now. I think at the very least, it's something nice that you can kind of put out there and sell a little
what's
bit.
the magnitude
But
we're talking
the
about,
numbers on a business license,
Well, let me add to that. I would tell you from a state perspective, you don't, it's actually not allowed in most of the state statutes, except for recently in the worst tier counties, for the state to incentivize retail, because retail comes to the market, and if the market's not there, retail won't last. And too many times what we've seen is when you come up with beer, exactly. So we'll take a look at this, and again, I want to make sure it's something that would benefit everybody. I think too many times when we look at special incentives and things like that, it's no benefit for our existing businesses. And frankly, I think for the city of Columbia to go and grow, unless you're the state of Texas today, I think it's difficult to recruit corporate headquarters. To get them, you have to grow your own. And so sprouting if this is something that helps sprout more small businesses that become medium-sized businesses, that become big businesses, I would be all for it. But we'll take a look and study at it and report out at the next committee.
And then I would ask, I don't know if we have any information about the success rate that Greenville has had, because it's still pretty new. I don't know if anyone's taken
Yeah, it's
advantage of
been
it.
Just a year. I'm going to reach out to their, I think he's their director of, I was going to reach out to someone up there that's knowledgeable, and I don't know what his actual position is, just to see how they've taken, how many of these applications they've taken and if they're doing it, and if there's been a focus in certain areas and certain groups. And we were thinking through Councilman Brennan's question as well, we will take a look to see kind of what that average is just on business license. So I do have a concern that it might not really move the needle to do a program, just focus on business license. But if there's going to be a focus for the need for grocery, it could be part of a program potentially that could be added in with something else. But we can bring that type of information back at our next meeting. I've made notes.
And
Let
I
me
will
add
say
this,
too, and I do understand not over incentivizing any particular project too.
Well, and I would say, and I think one of the things, I've never been a big fan of business licenses. I mean, they're already paying a 6% tax, which is 33% higher than residential's. But, I think as part of this, we look at our whole business program. I'd love to see us, for small businesses, not even charge a business license for the first year period. So we take a look at the whole
What are we thinking
thing.
about? What are we considering small?
Federal government says anybody under 500 small, but I think a little bit smaller than that. You do, federal government class for small businesses, anything
500
less than
people.
500.
Yeah, 500 people. That's why I was wondering.
But I was thinking,
We use 50, I think, in
And that
OBA.
is something we could take a look at, because I was kind of interested in their additional, I think that's on the second or third page, where new investment, if it had the number of jobs and capital investment where they are rebating back a certain percentage. I think you asked the question, Ryan was talking about it on this page.
Right,
See,
I
what is
didn't know if they were a
as
part.
as a policy going forward, though, here's what I'd ask that we do as a committee, when we got these things, if we can get those, when the agenda comes out, kind of like we do at the city council meeting, so we'll get a chance to review the stuff and read it before, I think it would be very helpful.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Erica reminded me last week, so sorry for not
And-
preparing it quicker.
Yeah, and I will take full responsibility too, because I mentioned it in the council meeting and I forgot to talk directly to Ryan. And so when we talked last week, I said, bring us some information so that we can start having a discussion. So I'll take some of that responsibility
Well,
as well.
nobody's blaming anybody, I just think, I think it helps us helps me anyway, to have a better understanding. And I look forward to reading this evening. Any other questions about this program?
And I do think one other thing that we didn't mention that's worth kind of bringing up, though, is, there's certain reporting standards that go along with this too. So, these businesses will have to certify at the end of each year. I know this is done through an application process, so it's not outright granted to businesses. But kind of keeping in mind, if that's something, a mechanism you start to look at, what the staff needs would be on the back end to kind of come through at the beginning of each year and have to recertify, based on the number of businesses that could add some additional strain as well.
Do you think the organizations themselves would have capacity issues?
I don't, not, no,
Like,
the
you know,
businesses, no.
more paperwork that the city is
Well, I
giving
would
them to do?
clarify too, that this would be basically just, not charging the fee. You still have to apply for for your license. That's,
Yeah, you have to apply,
That's
you have to pay, and if you meet the criteria, I think within 30 days of your full payment of your business license or permit fee, then you get rebated on the back end. So it's
that I can tell you, makes it very difficult to move the needle.
something, as you mentioned, that's kind of maybe an outright upfront would,
Well, I just think it's part of what
But-
we're doing, and the mayor's slogan about us being open, you know, that again, you know, I just think one of the things we may want to look at some point in time, I'm not saying now, but at some point in time would be, again, you know, the first year you're in business, there is no business license in the city. You apply for it, there's no charge, and then you get billed the second year. Just things like that.
You don't
Pretty
make much money
significant
anyway.
percentage of businesses that don't apply for the second year, that
That's,
don't make it the first, from what I think I saw a statistic on that. So yeah, any little bit helps, I guess.
that's right.
Yeah.
Were you about to say something?
Well, I was going to say, I think Greenville probably took a look at this as doing this as a rebate. We have had discussions of this in the past about exempting it in the front end, and there's been legal issues. You may recall even
Right.
10, 12
Can't
years
treat
ago
them
with Ken
differently.
Gage and others, that the focus has always been, we're going to have to rebate it. So it does create a problem, because then they still have to pay it up front. And if they're already struggling in the front end, I won't say struggling, but if it's already, they're pulling everything they can, they're now they got to still pay it and wait, whether that's 30 days or every quarter or whatever it is, that can, it seems to diminish a little bit of what the program was intending to do.
You know, and I'll just kind of maybe close with this guy. It was an interesting deal. I watched a webinar the other day on retail recruitment, which would include grocery stores and things like that. And the number one, this is interesting, the number one incentive for small businesses and retailers is the speed that you get them open. That's the number one deal. And you know what that cost us? Nothing. And so I think that's part of what we need to work on. How quick can we get your building permit? How quick can we get you inspected? How quick if there's a zoning change? And I would argue that, I'm not going to call the name of the company, but they do make airplanes. That one of the reasons they're in South Carolina today is because we could get them a grading permit in 30 days, and the other places they were looking at, said that would take up to 3 years. So it's just an interesting thing there. Thank you, Ms. Herbert and Ryan.
yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, having that, now we get to talk in executive session about some folks that are talking about making big investments in Columbia and projects. So is there a motion that we go into executive session?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we enter into executive session, discussion of matters relating to the proposed location, expansion, provision of services, encouraging location or expansions of industries or other businesses in the area served by the public body pursuant 30-4-70A5, Project Astral, Project Subtext, Project Tango, Capital City Stadium.
Second.
Erica, you want to call the roll?
Aye.
Yes.
All right. We are going to thank you for joining us today. And then, like I say, for the record, we try to do our meeting at 1 o'clock the second Tuesday of